some of the explanation that I gave the other class on the business plan deliverables for week 2, the data and sensory system strategy. So basically, when you're talking about data, you're talking about KPIs, right? So slide 1 is really about unstructured data. 80% of the data in the world is unstructured, meaning that it's not a part of the database and it's ready to be analyzed. So the question is, will you have sources of unstructured data that could be valuable for your business? What are you going to be how are you going to be processing that? How are you going to be structuring that? So let me give you an example. Social media, I think, is a number one, the best example for unstructured data. If you wanted to say get data on the tweets of if you have a fashion business and you want to get you know basically the tweets on fashion, you might have hundreds of millions of tweets of people in different countries in different scenarios, men, women, about dresses, about fashion in different angles. So the question is, how are you going to structure all that? Because right now you would have two columns. If you download it into a into a database, you would have the user, the handle, and basically the comment. But that's not enough. You need like 15 columns. You need to run algorithms and basically separate that and basically figure out which ones are related to dresses and which ones are related to um, to shirts, and which one are related to to different parts, to different garments. And then within each garment, what are their the ones related to color, and the ones related to texture, and the ones related um, to price, and the ones related to trendy looks, etc. You can go crazy. You can structure it in all sorts of different ways, but that's where you add value. That the process that you um, figure out the lens on how to look at unstructured data, and you structure it. So that's slide number 1. Slide number 2 is about challenge the matrix. What is the conventional thinking in your data arena? Where do you operate? What are the traditional KPIs of how success is measured? So, for example, um, do all these time honored ways of doing things belong in the AI era? The answer is obviously not. This is where you innovate the product, the process, the nervous system measurements, or the KPIs. Um, in the Alibaba Business Challenge that we just I'm a judge in that competition, and the winner from Indonesia was very interesting. This woman launched in Indonesia, apparently, just like everywhere else in the world, it's very hard to do your taxes, and she launched. The government made a change, just like in Mexico. So now, from having a 10% compliance of tax people, doing their taxes, they had to go up to 90%, and nobody knew how to do their taxes. So they're normally the traditional way of doing things. So this is the time honored tradition, the traditional way of doing things, the traditional success in the field of taxes in Indonesia was basically going with a tax advisor. So you go with a tax advisor that takes a look at your taxes. You sit down with 2-3 hours with that person, and you explain to them all your finances, all your situations. They ask you 1,000 questions, and then they basically create your taxes for you. And so that's the way that was getting done traditionally in Indonesia. But that, how did she decide to do it? She decided to do an app that was going to be completely different. It was going to have, most of the taxes were simple to do. So it was going to have a chatbot that was going to help, automate questions and basically calculate it for them. For, 60% of the cases, it was just a straight, slam dunk, very easy to calculate taxes. And for the other 40%, she incorporated into the app a direct connect with a tax advisor over video call. So, and then she had the best of both worlds. For the simple situation, she was able to automate it. For the complex situation, they were able to get in touch with a person, but not have to set up an appointment, but get connected directly from the app. And that just changed the game, and that's what Challenge the Matrix is all about. You also think about changing the nervous system measurements. I think that's a very good example of Maurice Conti's video about the how once you put a nervous system on something, it basically you can change the game and create a business. I remember that some students wanted to launch a mezcal brand last year, and one of the innovations was a sensor, a $2 sensor in the bottle, as you pour, so that the bottle would know and would transmit to central command, you know, what how much were you pouring, what were you pouring, how often were you pouring, what times of the day were you pouring. So then you were able to take a whole level of control, and by putting a $2 sensor on a $100 bottle of mezcal, all of a sudden, and being able to give your clients the bars the ability to connect to it via an app and be able to manage the employees that way, that was basically, it was kind of a brilliant idea. So this is where you innovate the product, the process, the measurements, the KPIs, etc. The third slide is about how can you disrupt the data arena that you're in. So basically, generate the first mover advantage. We have a number of videos about first mover advantage, but basically, this is where, how are you going to take down the incumbents? How are you going to make it better? How are you going to use technology to leapfrog over them? And basically, it's going to be your secret sauce, so to speak. No, one of my clients, Chinatown, that I'm going to talk to you about in the other second video that I'm going to create, is going, for the week 3 marketing, you're going to see how for that client we created a scraper, which is an algorithm that goes and looks for the prices of the products that we wanted to sell in the marketplace for my client. The scraper goes and looks at Mercado Libre, finds that product, and brings it in. So that script is a competitive advantage. That's going to be disruptive. That's going to be allow us to dynamically change the prices, 10 times a day, and always underneath Mercado Libre, so that the marketing can actually say because it's easy to do it for one product. The tough part is to do it for 15,000 products. So when you say cheaper, chinatown.com.mx, cheaper than Mercado Libre in over 15,000 products, and you can put that on marketing, that's a competitive advantage. And that's basically, utilizing the power of data. So that's slide number 3. Slide number 4 is, where do you think the industry will be 10 years out? This has to do with your vision of the future. If your vision is too shallow, the investors are, who often specialize in the industry, will not invest. And if your vision is too out there, they're gonna think that you're crazy. So, you can't. You kind of have to get it right, and so you need to talk to a lot of people that are experts in that industry and bounce your ideas off of them. And where do you think it's going to be in 10 years? The easiest example, I go to a lot of dealerships. I have a lot of clients that are dealerships, and I ask them, when do you think that Mexico will be driverless? And I get answers from like 5 to 7 years to 40 years. And some people actually say never. In Mexico, it will never be driverless because people are like too crazy. And so, you kind of have to make a decision as to where you think it's going to be, because the next one is the cone of uncertainty. There's a video that explains it. You can click on the article. The article is a great article that shows you basically, how to do it. But here, really the deliverable is the cone of uncertainty. You need to build this cone with what you're going to do in the 1 to 2 years, what you're going to do in the 2 to 5 year range, in the 5 to 10 year range, and in the 10 plus year range. And this in the 10 year range is where you believe the industry will be. So what happens? Why is it a cone? Well, it's a cone because just like with the hurricane planning. And by the way, that's why they call it the cone of uncertainty, because it might hit here, it might hit here, it might hit here. And you guys, if you've seen weather coverage on hurricanes, you they always create a cone. So that's what planning for a 10-year outlook is like. You have to plan for different scenarios along the impact field of the cone, so that you're prepared to do any one of these scenarios, and you're constantly adjusting as the 1 to 2 years becomes the present, and the 2 to 5 years becomes the 1 to 2 years, and the 5 to 10 years becomes the 2 to 5 years. You keep adjusting and you keep modifying it every day, all the time, and that's how you do a cone of uncertainty. So that's like the that's slide number 5, and then slide number 6 is the Maurice Conti video. What is the sensory system that you need to create in order to capture the right data? I mentioned the mezcal brand with the sensor on the bottle, so when you pour, you can actually know what's coming out of the bottle when, and it's generating all sorts of data. So and then other questions about data bias, which is one of the biggest problems with data, how to ensure data integrity, data provenance, data lineage, etc. Do your best. Don't worry if you have a bad grade. You just redo it and regrade. It's not a big deal. This is but make sure you Google anything that you don't understand, and and do a little bit of research on your own. But that's kind of the explanation. I hope it was helpful, and basically that's it. Take care and good luck in the week 2 deliverables.